WADR through our website, www.wadr.org.
Citizens R is evolving as the WADR's partnership with NET continues. This April, your NET Democracy and Governance program is going to the Sahel. We will focus on Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and other West African countries, including Benin, Togo, Nigeria, and the Gambia. Bolder conversations, real voices, inclusive discussions. Let's talk democracy. Let's talk governance. Let's talk your truth. Citizens R Season 2 in partnership with the National Endowment for Democracy NET on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar.
Hello there, and thank you for joining us on this edition of Citizens Hour, your democratic citizens engaging and current affairs radio program. We are coming to you live from West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM in Dakar, and we are also streaming live online on WADR.org, and do full live streamings on YouTube and Facebook. Citizens Hour comes to you live every Saturday at 10:30 in Dakar, and of course 11:30 in Niamey, bringing you more engaging conversation. I am Imo Edet. It's going to be a solo ride this morning as my colleague Usman Omar in Abuja is bereaved, and he will be joining us much next week on the program. But on the show today, our discussion takes us to two highly critical political crossroads in our sub-region, the constitutional battlefield of Benin and the internal ideological fractures right here in Senegal. It's going to be a cracker this morning. So our first topic, we'll look at Benin after Talon, reform, legacy, or democratic setback. Now, for decades, Benin has heralded as the pioneer of national conferences and democratic stability in Francophone Africa. But under patron Patrice Talon, the rules of the game changed radically. We asked that his sweeping electoral and constitutional reforms modernize the state, or did they subtly lock the door against political pluralism? Meanwhile, our second discussion stays right here in Dakar, diving deep into what we are calling the Senegal split. We are analyzing the profound political and systemic divisions currently playing out in the country, and we are asking, is this structural rift a principled defense of democratic institutions, a classic raw power struggle between old and new guards, or a genuine sign of a nation in peril? Do stay with us for all of this and more. Well, you can be part of the conversation by dropping your comment on our YouTube and Facebook pages. Well, let me go straight and bring on board our guests who have already joined us. Two from Benin and one from Ghana. Well, joining us is Mr. Morgan Ashogbavi Metoji. He's the Director of Morgan Training and author of Making an ECOWAS of the People a Reality. We also have David Asante Dakar. He's a research analyst with Wademos, and Gafudu Sakpoho, an expert in Benin politics and a journalist. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. Good to see you, Mr. Morgan. And David, good to see you also. All right, Mr. Morgan, let me start with you. I mean, your perspective as an author, focusing on regional populace and observer of Beninese politics. When President Talon introduced tighter fiscal controls, anti-corruption court, and reform electoral laws, supporters called it necessary institutional hygiene. But critics say it's effectively barred the opposition. Now, is this a case of a country taking one step forward administratively or two steps backward democratically? Mr. Morgan, please unmute.
Well, it is important, yes. It is unmuted.
Yes,
I
please go
hope
ahead.
you can hear me.
Yes.
Can I? All right. So it is important to highlight the fact that both sides are right, meaning those thinking that this is an hygiene in the system when it comes to management, and those thinking that it is rather a setback. Uh, Both have their clear fact to support their opinion. But when it comes to having an objective analysis of the situation, it is clear that what happened throughout the past 10 years of leadership of President Talon is something that is unheard of when it comes to Benin political management and strategy. And it has led the country to move in a direction that might not be the direction that some people expected. You know, when you look at the situation, two school of thought. Those who believe that the most relevant things in a system is the freedom and all the, let's say, dynamic that surround individual liberties and democracy as it has been institutionalized. And there is a second school of thought that believes rather that what matters in any system, be it democratic or not, is the development perspective, the improvement of people's living condition. When you look at the situation from these two angles, it is clear that you will agree that in a very clear manner, President Patrice Talon leadership has contributed in improving the living condition of the people in terms of development when it comes to civil rights. When I'm talking about civil rights, I'm talking about the ability of the public service to attend to the people. There are some documentation that were extremely hard to get 10 years when you move back, and today you can get all this documentation from your household. And I'm also looking at the infrastructure, be it when it comes to the roads, when it comes to the health system, and when it comes to the digital ability of the country. So we have factual improvement in terms of living condition, though the fact of people being able to feel the development is still a problematic issue. And this is why the incumbent leader that will be sworn in within some few hours has decided to structure his program on fighting extreme poverty. So it shows that the diagnosis has been made that the people do not right now really enjoy the development process. It is rather at a macro level than at the people-centric perspective. So yes, we have been moving forward in a direction that is not a setback, but that is not also per se a development. Depending on where you stand, you will call it a development, and you can also call it a setback.
Indeed. David, let me cross to you there in Accra. I mean, from a CSO standpoint, I know Adamos has been doing a lot, and you have extensively covered and done plenty of research and reports on Patrice Talon. What can you tell us about his 10 years in government? And would you say during this period we saw a shrinking civic space?
Definitely. So I agree with Morgan, regarding the administrative efficiency that's been introduced into, the Beninese system and the economy. But then when it comes to the issue of human rights and the engagement with opposition, there are a lot of questions that come up there. So we could say that the issue here is reforms, right? What have the reforms exactly been about? I wouldn't call it a reform per se. I would say it is an intensification of suppression and repression of, not just the Beninese citizens, but the opposition specifically, which emerged initially under Boniai. So we began to see even Talon himself was a victim of this under Boniai. And under him, it has just escalated. So if we are talking about reforms, reforms suggest change. But in my opinion, what we are seeing here isn't change. What we are seeing here is an aggravation of a situation that was concerning even before Talon appeared on the scene. If you have reforms that are such that every single election is predominantly won by the ruling party, it becomes difficult, or should I say, more challenging to call that system a democracy. The system is designed such that regardless of however many opposition parties you have going up against the ruling government will prevail. And it will do so predominantly.
Well, David, just to ask, just to follow up before I bring on board Gafudu, who is on standby, are you saying that efficiency in some way can replace democracy in this regard?
No, it can't. Not in any way. Because administrative efficiency, that one is a technical issue. It's a technical issue regarding, technocrats. That one is a separate issue. But then we are talking about a system that has become so repressive that any sort of opposition which poses some threat or challenge to the ruling government immediately gets eliminated. Under Talon, we have seen every single opposition figure who, posed some kind of competition to the ruling party eliminated one way or the other. The person is either in exile or in jail or suppressed totally. That did not even happen under Boniai, who, as I've already indicated, did also execute some levels of repression which were concerning at the time because it was new.
Okay.
Following Kereku's presidency, that was his rule, which was truncated by the democratic era in 1991, 1992. We have never seen any kind of repression and suppression of, the Beninese people and opposition as we have seen, under Talon over this particular decade. And
all right.
I don't think we should be talking of reform here because
okay,
what exactly are we reforming?
Let me go back to Benin and take on Gafudu, who he was there during the last election that brought Wadani. And Gafudu, what have the people been saying about this new government? And the outgoing president gave a farewell speech 2 days ago. What were the reactions, or have been the reactions of people in this regard? And what are they expecting to see after 10 years of Patrice Talon moving forward?
Well, one thing people have been saying, there wasn't much reaction about the speech of the president himself, aside his own supporters who found that it's a great speech. Actually, summarizes everything he has done over the last 10 years. For the moment, the most of people are just concerned with the upcoming administration, and though they acknowledge the change that Talon has brought in terms of infrastructure and also in terms of facilitating some administrative processes and other technical things, still they're still feeling this pain that they hope will be relieved with the coming of the coming administration.
When you say pain and hope, what in what area?
Mainly in area of first cost of life. This is very, very important in the area of cost of life because though the government has been attributing this to the global problem that all the countries are facing, still people are expecting things to really ease for them in terms financially speaking and also in terms of assessing, I mean, most of products in the country. But also, people hope that there will also be some kind of relief in terms of pressure on political pressure on politicians because there are these debates on about the break that has been put in the constitution for the next 6 to 7 years. There would not be any political, wouldn't say criticism, but attacks. So on social media and any form of media, many people came over the media to explain what actually that means. While some understand this as yes, you can criticize, but you have to come up. We must suggest also solutions to improve. To improve things, not just criticize, just to jeopardize what the government is doing. Why, when you point out some things that are not going well, you should also suggest means and ways to improve that. So there's this understanding of what that aspect, that break that the government, I wouldn't say the government, but that has been inserted in the constitution, but also other people think that no, is total break, not even criticism. And when we talk about criticism, it's also, there was a question whether this includes journalists or it's just politicians.
Or even CSOs.
CSOs too. So I think it includes everyone, politicians, CSOs, and also journalists. So this actually limits the capacity of really of CSOs and journalists to contribute because, I mean, not really being honest in terms of really pointing out things that are going well because for fear of
being arrested.
Being arrested. So, okay. But it's a new experience. Everyone, we're going to start and see how it goes. There's also this issue of, you know, the new president will be sworn in instead of the parliament. It's going to happen in Cotonou. So there has been also criticism about that. Well, the government has not provided any clear explanation about that.
Okay, yet. Thank you, Governor. Let me go to Mr. Morgan on standby. I mean, would you say the lives of Beninese have improved in the last 10 years compared to the previous administration of Boniai?
Well, it is obvious. This does not.
Oh, sorry, it was for Mr. Morgan, Gafford.
Is it Mr. Gafford?
No, Morgan, go ahead. Morgan, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I think this is obvious. It's a fact that the living conditions have improved, but the pocket is still dry to some extent.
How is that so?
And this is actually the paradox. This is the paradox of development. And it is not just proper to Benin. When you do observe the way most of the countries, when they decide to embrace or to embark on development, having infrastructure developed, the cost of life becomes quite expensive, making it very difficult for those who do not have a certain level of capability to actually take advantage of the situation. And this is what needs to be actually solution within our context for the people to actually take advantage of the development, because there is a step forward of the country, but the people are still behind because they need to adjust to be able to take advantage of the system. And if you do allow me, I will definitely address some of the issues that have been raised that are right, but needs probably a different perspective. When it comes to, let's say, indicator of being in a democratic system when we have to consider the fact that opposition uh, will definitely demonstrate when there is a change of leadership. It highlights the fact that there is democracy. I think democracy itself as a system has not been clearly explained to the people. Let's say change in leadership does not guarantee democracy. Democracy is a system that gives the floor to the majority to run as the majority believes. Because in our system, when you are capable of having the majority at the parliament to make the rules, the only thing you need it is the executive to enforce the rules that you make. And when it happens in such manner, it is very clear that some people will definitely come out and believe that this is not democracy. But this calls for a serious clarification of what should be democracy. Democracy, as it has been institutionalized for the past years, is being questioned now because in some context, you have change in leadership, civil leadership, and no development. And then you have some military system that have been able in some places to show that they can handle development, but in some other places, it has been clear that they cannot. And in some context, you have leadership that have been very strict in certain ways in order to get other ways done. So I think we have to figure out what should be democracy. Should we have standards of democracy that is one size fits all, or should we agree on the fact that what matters in a system is the development of the people's living condition? And how do we actually set up indicators to evaluate a system? And if you allow me, when it comes to political leaders, what happened recently in Benin was very funny, but also appealing in terms of seeing the opposition leaders all move towards
The ruling government.
incumbent.
Yeah.
Yes. And you can see today that there is no more opposition clearly stated in Benin Republic. And this
Mr. Morgan, let me
be a blame.
Yes, let me hold your thought there and cross over to David. David, Mr. Morgan talked about a democracy that is one size fits all. Do you agree with that? Or what type of democracy should we see in this regard?
So, talking about democracy and development, the point he was making there, democracy does concern itself sometimes with development, but ultimately, and I think we need to get this right, democracy isn't ultimately about development. Democracy is first and foremost about representation.
Let me ask you, David, let me come in at this point. I mean, when you say democracy is not about development, then what? Should it just be about representing the people without seeing a development?
The development that is seen must be one that is attained by a consensus, as opposed to unilateral decisions by a select few.
Okay.
The system we have in Benin now, Mr. Morgan was talking about the opposition drifting towards the ruling government. Well, under normal circumstances, that wouldn't be a problem. The only challenge here is what happens to those who do not want to drift towards government. So we have a significant, drift towards government. We don't dispute that. But then why is it that everyone who opposes the government and does so on a level that is seen to be significant curiously ends up either in jail or experiences, some set of circumstances that require them to go into exile or something of the like?
Yeah.
That is the question that, we are posing here. Under a normal democracy, that shouldn't be happening. And mind you, it's not like it's happening to one person who is opposed to the government or, some other person, making it something that you could attribute to happenstance. it is happening to every single person who stands up, strictly against the government. And that is a worrying sign. Meanwhile, the development that we are talking about, if the development is so, self-professing or so evident, then why is the government also clamping down on protests against the rising cost of living? And why is the government putting so much effort in clamping down on protests by labor unions and, workers in general? Because if there is development, then that means there's nothing to protest about. I mean, if the labor unions are coming out, then they are coming out to, promote the government and its policies and everything. But then when you have legislation continually being weaponized to clamp down on protests, and you have the security forces also being used to clamp down on protests, it puts this kind of development narrative, into question.
Well, let's talk about the transition and the future of Benin. Gafud, I would like to start with you. In few hours, we'll be seeing a new leadership take over the runnings in Benin there. Are we expecting to see a different government, knowing the fact that this was a finance minister during the time of Patrice Talon? Is there going to be something different? Because this is one argument that we have argued over and over again in our newsroom. The fact that if you were a finance minister and you couldn't achieve this during your tenure as a finance minister, what is the possibility that you'll be able to achieve that even when you become the president? Let's talk about that, Gafudo.
Well, when he was presenting his manifesto before the elections, he said, yes, we are going to improve what Talon's administration was not able to achieve or to do well. He made that promise, but he did not say exactly what is going to be improved, what went wrong, and that they are going to improve. We're definitely going to see new faces. Of course, it's not going to be the same ministers. We have already 3 key members of the outgoing administration that have completely decided to withdraw from governance and administration, who technically are not going to even show any interest in joining the upcoming administration, because they said we want to give the opportunity to other people to come. And we are going to see new faces, like I said. But the policy, actually, there won't be much change, because it's like something that had been designed. Because we talk about 2060 strategic plan, which definitely derives from what has been happening for the last 10 years, and that the upcoming administration, or whatever administration comes, has to follow. So I'm not seeing any major change in the way leadership has been conducted for the last 10 years. They will continue to work on development, and definitely development means not just for Benin, for most of the developed countries, means that some kind of limit of liberty for people, because if you allow people to express themselves, because you need to understand that opposition in Africa is not far from an enemy.
It is an enemy in most cases.
An opponent in Africa is not just an ordinary adversary. He's ready to do anything to destroy whatever you have built. So, and to achieve what you have to achieve, there are some measures that you need to take to make sure. But many governments, unfortunately, in Africa, have not been able to do that. Talon succeeded in doing that, imposing, but what they did not succeed in doing is to clearly show that we are here for development and we are not here for democracy.
Indeed.
So, and I think, and they've been like, okay, we are doing development, but also democracy.
All right, Gafudu.
Which is
yeah, let me cross over to Mr. Morgan, please, because of time. Mr. Morgan, now, what do you think this incoming administration of Wadani should prioritize?
I think my thoughts are maybe in encouraging the direction, because when you look at the diagnostics all over the place, there is one key thing that has not been achieved. And they were, let's say, wise enough to admit it. People all around the country are not able yet to feel in their pocket the development we are talking about. All the figures are internationally are good, but within the country, the people are still believing that their belt are still tight, because when the President Talon came, he said we should tighten the belt. And some people don't have stomach, and 10 years later, the belt is still tightened. So indeed, the focus should be on people. How does the coming government manage to make sure that every citizen in the country is able to move out from poverty or from a certain level of ability to feed himself, to take care of the family? In fact, it's about developing the citizen itself, not developing the infrastructure and the environment of the citizen. That is going to be the challenge. And to succeed, there is a need, because the country is stepping into industrialization, the need of developing the appropriate energy to feed all the industry is a very crucial question, because recently we've started experiencing again power outage in Benin, which is something that we did not experience for a certain time. In fact, some people believe that they manage just after the election, we started living again in the power shortage. But it is a real issue of development that we are facing.
Indeed.
And if you allow me,
maybe in 1 minute,
I
so I
believe
can cross over
that
to David. Go ahead.
in,
Maybe.
in, in less than 1 minute, I believe that when there is development, there is more protest. In fact, people start protesting because there is a distance that is created. And all over the world, when you look at people coming out, you look at the US, you look at the UK, you look at Europe, you still have people coming out to protest. And when you look at it from our African position, you will just question yourself, what are they protesting about? They are developed.
Yeah.
So I think development does not take away protests at all.
Okay.
People keep on protesting about what they lack, and it is normal for government to manage this and to satisfy their need.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for your submission. Well, David, for this new administration, do you think Wadani will be able to rebuild that trust between government and opposition?
It's a very daunting task, given the so-called reforms that we have in place, because building trust means you are going to need to create a system that brings the opposition more into government and governance. But the system that we have currently is such that the level of opposition participation in governance is strictly determined by the ruling coalition. And I don't see how you can even begin to call that a democracy to begin with. We saw that was it 2024? When the opposition refused to endorse some reforms that the government was trying to make to the existing constitution. It was immediately after that we saw the recent reforms, right, that were put in place, such that the most recent parliamentary election that they had literally excluded any kind of opposition. So when you have a ruling government with that kind of power to let in an opposition, basically regulate the level of opposition you have in a country, it's concerning. The system we have in Benin right now is just like what they have in Togo.
Okay.
The only difference between the two comes, with the Senate. So in Benin, we have a Senate, as opposed to a president of the Council of Ministers that they have in the Togolese system. But what the two systems are doing is similar. There is very little difference. What they've done is basically transfer power from the people into a very small parallel system. So basically, another imposition that's going to, make Wagdagnis work very difficult is the fact that this new Senate that they have in Benin is literally going to be able to dictate anything that has to do with Benin's politics going into the future.
Does that mean there will be interference in his decisions?
A lot. I expect a lot. I expect a lot. If we are being honest, he is just, a figurehead. He's just a figurehead. Let's be honest about these things. He's not going to be able to impact the political system, significantly, or in the way that a president should be able to. All those decisions are going to be made for him. And I don't think the initial Beninese constitution that Talon came to meet when he became president had that intention in mind.
Indeed. Well, in rounding off this session, we do have just a few minutes left. Gafudu, if you're there, I mean, how do you think history will judge Talon, a reformer, a strong man, or you think they'll judge him as both a reformer and a strong man?
I think it's gonna be both. It's gonna be both, because of course reforms have yielded some results and brought about so significant changes. So everybody witnessed that in terms of infrastructure, but also on some technical aspects. But on the other side, well, we suffered some hardship. 10 years of our belt tightens and not ready to loosen the belt for the next probably 7 or 14 years again. So this is the legacy that he has left, and this people, everybody will going to remember him for that.
Well, Mr. Morgan, what do you also think in this regard? History will judge Talon as a reformer, a strongman, or both?
I totally align with Gafudu, if I pronounce the word properly. And what I can just add to what he said is that they do know in leadership that this belt has to be loose at this moment because Beninese are different, and depending on the case, the people will really come out and protest. What I can say is that I agree with my brother David on the fact that the leadership of President Wadai is going to be challenged, but not by the same thing that he sees. I'm rather seeing that the opposition to the leadership of President Wadai is already within the political parties that are being considered as belonging to the leading team. I do believe that there are many people who are part of these parties because of the strong man and his ability to take advantage of all the political tricks that you can imagine. But at the moment that the strong man will leave and that their interests will be coming very different from the dynamic of President Wadai, he will have to come out with a huge, genuine strategy to maintain them in line, because currently when you go down to the country, what people say is that everybody has to line up. Everybody has to line up. And there is a reason they are lining up. But saying that political leaders are being coerced in joining the leading system, I don't really believe so. They might be coerced to some extent, but to some extent, the responsibility is theirs. As political leaders, they must be, let's say, guided by a certain level of dignity. Because when you look at the country, we still have political leaders that are not supporting the leading party. And they are in the country. They are not all out of the country. Many of them are in the country. But some of those that we believed They should be incarnating opposition in the country are those that have joined the leading party. And this is a surprise to most of the people. And when you look at it from outside, you will believe that it is all the political actors within the country that are joining the leading. I don't think it is a fact. You have to come in the country and see there are still people who do not share the view of the leading team, and they are still in the country, speak in a certain manner their opposition, even though they do not stand as a strong political party.
Indeed, great one there. And just before we run off this segment, David, your last thought on this. What are we expecting in the coming days? Wadani will be sworn in the next couple of hours. We're going to see a new government and fanfare of some sort in Benin. I mean, from your end, what should you be or will you be expecting to happen in the coming days? Some of the quick fixes you think Wadani will want to do?
I don't really see Wadani doing much in any sector, to be honest. And it goes back to the question of whether he'll be remembered as a reformer or a strongman. I think posterity is going to remember him as the one individual to whom the breakdown of democracy in Benin can directly be attributed. Because what he has built is basically a rigged system that is so widespread, pervasive, that it offers very little room for the opposition to maneuver. There is no way, to attack this particular system that Talon has built. You can see that this is not something, that just happened by chance. It is a calculated, scheme that was put into place way before 2016 when he came into power, when he won the election. So Benin has a really huge challenge on its hands going forward. And to speak to what Morgan was saying, that rift that is going to develop within the ruling government is even going to make things more challenging. Because now with the strong man gone, everyone who felt they had to hide or, they had to tone down their aggression now feels this is the time to come up. And already Wadagni isn't going in with so much legitimacy because you have a president that everyone feels was put there by someone. So if you are opposed to whatever it is that I'm suggesting, in what capacity are you opposing? Because we were here before you came. That's going to be a challenge he's currently going to have to deal with. So like I said, to put it simply, Talon did Benin's democracy a huge disservice.
That's something that we will continue to be talking about in the coming days. But I really want to thank you, gentlemen, for your time and bringing your insight and analysis to this matter. Well, we had Morgan Asogbavi Matoji, Director of Morgan Training and author of Making an ECOWAS of the People Reality. We also had David Asante Dakar, a research analyst with the WADR, and Gafudu Sakpoho, an expert in Benin politics and a journalist. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your analysis. It was a pleasure to have the three of you on the show. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Indeed. All right, if you're just joining us on radio 94.9 FM in Dakar, streaming on our YouTube channel and Facebook page, this is Citizens Hour. We are coming to you live on West Africa Democracy Radio. Well, we have been examining the complex post-reform democratic reality of Benin. Well, in this second half of the show is going to be an explosive one as we turn our gaze inward to Senegal. Known as the historical anchor of democracy in the sub-region, the political atmosphere post-elections has revealed a deep underlying ideological and institutional rift that culminated in the anticipated dissolution of government and the ultimate dismissal of Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko by the president. But before we bring on board our studio guests, we do have this ultimate announcement that was made yesterday. Take a listen.
Mesdames et messieurs, par décret numéro 2026-1128 du 22.
Ladies and gentlemen, by decree number 2026-1128 of May 22, 2026, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Bassirou Diomaye Diakhar Faye, terminated the functions of Mr. Ousmane Sonko, Prime Minister, and consequently those of the ministers and secretaries of state who were members of the government. The outgoing members of the government are responsible for handling current affairs. Done in Dakar, May 22, 2026, Decree number 2026-1128, terminating functions of the Prime Minister. The President of the Republic, having regard to the Constitution, in particular Articles 42, 43, 49, 53, and 56, therefore, having regard to Decree number 2024-921 of April 2, 2024, appointing the Prime Minister, and having regard to Decree number 2025-1430 of September 6, 2025, establishing the composition of the government. Decree, Article 1, the functions of Mr. Ousmane Sonko, Prime Minister of the Republic, Senegal, are hereby terminated. Article 2, this decree shall be published in the official Gazette of the Republic of Senegal. Done in Dakar on May 22, 2026, by President of the Republic, Bassirou Diomaye Diakhar Faye. Thank you for your attention.
Fait à Dakar le 22 mai 2026 par le Président de la République, Bassirou Diomaye Diakhar Faye. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
And that was the ultimate announcement announcing the dismissal of the former Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, and that was by Samba Omaba, the Secretary General of the Presidency. All right, to help us dissect this, we're joined by a powerhouse panel from our very own stable and also online. A friend of the house, we do have Mamadou Cho. He is based here in Senegal and he's joining us online. Mr. Cho, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Indeed, and as you have seen on our YouTube channel, when we had a flash of the entire studio, we have here joining me the head of news here at West Africa Democracy Radio, Abdullah Hassan. To my left, if you don't know him in person, this is what he looks like. And of course, I do have head of the digital media here at West Africa Democracy Radio, Francis Boniface, to my right. Thank you, Maldo, for doing those highlights of their faces. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Indeed. Mr. Cho, I would like to start with you online there, which is the first question, as everybody will ask. I mean, what happened? What triggered this dismissal? Maybe you can just explain to us. What was that point that brought about this dismissal?
Yeah, I mean, what happened is what was supposed to happen, because we've been now former Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko and President Bassirou Diomaye Faye. It became clear since November, early November, between them, things were getting worse. So we were waiting, when we did the day for them to separate. And that what happened yesterday, Friday. The president decided to dismiss his former mentor now and former prime minister. And politically, maybe that was the decision which should be done, because the Senegal cannot continue standing this tension between both heads of the executive. And that's why maybe the president, knowing that the time is flying, because he is going to 2029, maybe if he trying to get a second term, high time for him to try to see if he can make it for the coming presidency election. And for that, he needs to maybe part from Ousmane Sonko and try to make things on his own way and try to get a second term.
Indeed. Abdullah, let me start with you here in the studio. Was this anticipated by you? What was your initial reaction when you heard this news yesterday?
Very much. Thank you very much, Mo, for having me. The truth is, Mo, from the get-go, even before the elections, We have spoken to political observers, analysts from within Senegal and outside. And all they said was the fact that this was going to happen. It wasn't about if, it was about when. Just to highlight that. It wasn't about if, but about when. And also, I would not say the person we spoke with, but I'm happy that Francis is here with us in the studio. Just after the elections, we interviewed a high-profile personality individual, just not to say his name, but he said that Senegal technically had made a mistake for not voting or going along politics, but people's politics. And to add to that, Imo, we can see here clearly that the problem today is not structural, but were arrested just before the elections, and they were released 10 days before the elections. And all the while, former Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko was the face of the opposition, he was the face of the campaign, he was the face of PASTEF. So if there was an agenda or an ideology, a foundational problem.
Francis, on your part, what do you think was the major problem at this point? Because some people are pointing to public rebellion and counter clashes between, the president and his prime minister.
Well, it's true that this is the first time in history, I would say, I've seen, should I say, the president owing his office to the prime minister.
He breathes by the prime minister.
No, because, of course, the prime minister was a vehicle that, brought the president into power, which is a rare situation. It's always the other way around, where the president has the final say over the prime minister, in reality, not just in terms of constitutionally speaking. But in Senegal, it was a different situation for a while, ever since they came into power. And what led to this? Of course, the president has been the president for how long now? He has grown in stature and influence. He's no longer Jomai Faye of
the former Jomai Faye,
pre-election Jomai Faye. He's the president of the republic. He has many powers and he has many responsibilities too. And also there is also how to balance the interest of the state, the interest of the party, the interest of coalitions. There's so many things going on at the same time. And to me, it's only normal that when a personality, Jomai Faye, the president Jomai Faye has grown into such a personality, obviously there will be a clash with another very huge personality. Because this relationship, if we were to take it from a private, personal relationship, it was always more like Sonko was on top and Jomai was a follower. All of a sudden they're at the same level. Then all of a sudden Jomai Faye is now the president of the republic, which makes him naturally higher. So the dynamic in the personal relationship has changed. So for me, it's only normal that it affects the offices they are holding.
Well, Mr. Cho, let me come to you. Francis mentioned something very important. Jomai owing his survival, his status at this point to Sonko. Do you think at any point this hindered Jomai's personal ideology in terms of how Senegal should be run?
The difference is there. The way this country should be run, because for the past guy, those supporting this one to go, there's a change which is to be brought to the governance, and President Jomai is a bit different from that. As you've noticed, since last Thursday, he was using the former Prime Minister, former Minister of Finance, former Minister of Homeland Affairs, and other authorities. So that he is trying to bring together different parts of the nation. And for the pastor guy, this kind of things should not be done. So the difference is at that level. Jomai is trying to let them know, when, even if you have gone through hardships, once you are in power, you should try to bring everybody together. And what this passive guy cannot condone. In fact, they made promises like, trying to bring to court those who got the money and other criminals. So far, for over 2 years now, nothing has been done on that part. And that's why it become clear that these two head of the executive. So things were getting worse, and then we got the final decision yesterday from Bassirou Diomaye Faye, parting from Ousmane Sonko as his prime minister.
But how do you think the PASEF party is receiving this news? Looking at the fact that there's also a parallel coalition of some sort, that of Jomai. How do you think this will play out in the coming days?
Yeah, what is interesting, the decisions came at a time where the party is preparing his Congress. And the Congress is due June 6th. And then in that Congress, they want to elect again Ousmane Sonko as the chair of the party. And Mayor of Dakar, one of the Ousmane Sonko lieutenant, made it clear that the day after, I mean June the 7th, they should integrate Ousmane Sonko as a candidate for 2029 for the coming presidential election. It means in the coming days, I'm seeing the party saying that Bassirou Diomaye Faye, the comrade, is excluded from the party. Because they told him many times to come back to the line of the party, and they see that Bassirou Diomaye Faye is not coping with that. So let's wait for the outcome. Bassirou Diomaye Faye will have to try to a party of his own, dealing with coalition Diomaye president for the time being. But if he want to run in 2029, he need a party, a strong coalition, and him to face Pastor.
Well, just to make it clear, Mr. Cho, just one more question before I come back to the studio here. I know a lot of our listeners will be wondering if Sonko will be able to, or is now eligible to run in 2029. Maybe you can just briefly take us through that process that led to the reason why he will be able to stand for presidency in 2029.
In fact, the last who Sonko was being a candidate in 2009, it was this law in electoral code, and they luckily brought change with the law, because of the law in 2024, Sonko was not able to run because these were saying that there is if you are condemned in the defamation trial for something like 200,000 like that, people pay, or something like 1 month without going to jail. So you cannot be, you should be excluded from the electoral register. So they changed it, and the president decided to turn it into law. So in the meantime, the president is announcing all the law in the electoral code, in the constitutional court, and things like that. Nobody knows. Maybe the president can try to do what Macky Sall did in 2024. That politically speaking, he cannot face Ousmane Sonko because the guy, no matter what he says, is more popular than him. So he decided to try to find all the things to try to exclude him using the judicial system. As you know, in Africa, in many countries around the continent, people are using that to try to exclude the opposition leader or this powerful opposition in the leaders in the opposition. So anything can happen. I think that maybe Bassirou Diomaye Faye can try to avoid to this country another political crisis, because those Ousmane Sonko's followers made clearly that there is no way not to see him becoming a president. They say president, not even candidate, but president in 2029.
Well, Francis, are you concerned? I mean, with all of this explanation, are you concerned of what may play out in the coming days, looking at the fact that Mr. Cho mentioned that the popularity on the part of Sonko is still way higher than even the president?
I think, of course, if you're in Senegal, you must be concerned. Looking at the next month, like you said, the Congress, PASTEF coming up. I think PASTEF is going to use this as, a very big platform to kind of legitimize the position of Sonko ahead of 2029, knowing that now basically the road has been opened up for him to contest also. And he is, like he said, the biggest political force in the country, one way or the other. And I think there is that concern. But there is also, to me, I feel, in as much as it's a political season, sadly so, because right now it shouldn't be a political season.
Shouldn't.
We're still,
it shouldn't.
we're still 3 years away from an
shouldn't.
election, and we're already in a political season. Sadly, I think the economic situation is also very important.
And security as well.
And security, but especially economic situation, because right now Senegal is in a very bad position, very, very indebted at this point. I think it's probably the second most indebted African country.
They're about 139% above the threshold
to GDP, and I think that is a very dangerous situation. And now it can be a good thing for Sonko, because he can say, okay, I have hands off. It's no longer on me. It's now on Jomai and the new prime minister, kind of distancing himself and his record from the economic situation. On the other hand, President Sonko has to do a lot to be able to win back the people, economically speaking.
No,
let alone
President Jomai.
Oh, sorry. President Jomai, pardon. President Jomai. It's always difficult when you are used to the Sonko Jomai situation. Yeah. So I think President Jomai has 3 years to be able to turn this around, because apart from being in a bad position, politically speaking, the country is not in a very good position economically speaking. So I think it's a battle on two fronts for him.
As a matter of fact, let me add to what Francis said, Imo.
Yes.
I think President Jomai Faye technically has less than a year to prove that he can actually steer the country back to the right direction, or at least fulfill a part of their campaign promises. Because so far, we've spoken to people on the street, we've spoken to experts who say that 2 years down the road, this particular government has less to show to the people, or some of the promises or achievements they've able to make. And if the population was patient with them, it was because I'm using words because he's former. It was because of Osman Sonko. Now he's no longer with them. That separation is valid.
So this means Sonko may now end up becoming the opposition of Jomai in this case. Is that what we're going to see right now?
Practically speaking, he is already.
That was something he said in March. If at all there's separation, he is going to end up being an opposition. And with the majority in parliament, he already is an opposition. But what happens is, how will this go to affect the country? Because going forward, Jomai Faye will need support of the majority in parliament to pass through with some very good legislative instruments. We know that next month, precisely June 5 or 6, the IMF restructuring issue will come up. He will need that support in that. Also, there's the ongoing national consultation, which will bring about some recommendations that will lead us to the local elections scheduled for early next year. So a lot is on the table. They also talked about security. We know very well now that the threat is almost
getting closer
over from the Sahel down to Mali. And not forgetting the issue of unemployment, which today is a problem in Senegal. You're talking about migration. So there's a lot that Jomai Faye will have to do in at least a year.
But do you think it also puts the parliament in a very difficult position?
Because looking at the fact that this majority...
The parliament is the opposition right now. Because
you think they may want to stifle Jomai's...
Exactly. If they start going ahead to probably stifle bills and all that coming from
But don't you see
government,
a split?
The knock-on effect is on the people.
Yeah, but don't you see a split in parliament?
To tell you the truth, I see a split only if the members of parliament, the MPs, will grow conscience, because they will know when to say enough is
conscience
enough.
In terms of we wanting to serve the people, or we being loyal to a person.
To a particular person or to a particular ideology that becomes harmful and detrimental to the democratic journey or progression, peace and stability and economic stability of the country.
Well, Mr. Cho, let me bring you in here, because I understand you do have limited time with us. We were talking about the split in Parliament, knowing that PASTEF do have the majority. Is this dismissal going to affect that majority hold which we see in Parliament? Or people, like Abdullah mentioned, would want to face the conscience, work for the people, and not for loyalty. What do you think will play out at the parliament?
No, in fact, the big problem for President Basiru Diomaye Faye, because PASTEF has 130 MPs out of the 165, which means more than a majority. And when we were reading this law as an obstacle to the candidates they were responsible for, we saw that only 2 MPs decided to vote against this law, which means these 2 MPs are on Diomaye's side. The problem now is for the president. Until December, he cannot dissolve the parliament. What will he do with this hostility coming from the parliament? And yesterday, when some people asked the question, made it clear that the next prime minister appointed by, I mean, if he came to the parliament, they will not they for him.
Mr. Cho, you mentioned that Jomai may not be able to dissolve the parliament by decree. Why is that so?
Because the law is that the law says if the parliament does not make 2 years, the president cannot dissolve it. If you maybe after December or the election, they change the law. Because I mean, before the president could have dissolved the parliament, but I mean, over 3 years. So, in case President Basiru Diomaye Faye decided to dissolve the parliament, it's not sure that if there is a legislative, he will win majority. The problem. Politically, is he to face Usman Sonko? That is the big question, and he has to try to see his coalition with maybe the coming local election due normally in February, but maybe if the president decides to dissolve the parliament, we'll get together the MP's election and the local election together and try to see what both sides will do. But it is important to see now politically who is stronger than the other, because this will be meaningful for 2029.
All right, Mr. Cho, we want to thank you so much for your time on the program, and thank you so much for even giving us this 30 minutes plus on the show. Thank you so much, sir. Well, Abdullah, you heard it. The battle line has been drawn. Who is stronger? Who is more popular? Who will outshine the other? This is what we will be expecting in the coming days. And what do you think will happen?
Sadly, Imod, between former Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko and President Basiru Diomaye Faye, there is no loser. If there is a loser here, it's Senegal as a country, it's Senegalese as a society, as a community, because at the end of the day, they've almost achieved the pinnacle in their political career. So to say, Ousmane Sonko will forever be remembered as a Prime Minister until maybe he makes it to be a president, nobody knows. President Diomaye Faye, even if he leaves office tomorrow, will be remembered as a president. Nothing about that changes. They have all the privileges wherever they go within and outside the country or the sub-region, so nothing changes. But we should worry more about the country and the people, because they came upon one very good promise of reconciling the country, because when they came, there was a clear divide. And if anything, that division is going to grow wider because they had a majority when they came. So among them, there's going to be a split. But I wish that Mamadou Cho was still with us, because I wanted to ask him a question. Is it possible that Diomaye Faye still is playing a chess game? And if he is, how many more moves does he have? Because I'm thinking, if at all, I will still go back to the issue of conscience, right? If he's able to get a few of the PASTEF members to accept to form the new government, just then, maybe, he has a chance.
Francis, do you think Sonko at all this while have been playing the victim's card?
Well, has he been playing the victim card? I wouldn't necessarily say so. I think, first of all, politics is really complicated. And let's go back to when they came into power just over some years ago, and there was so much hope, And at this position where I think the movement, should I call it, because they ran almost on a Pan-African ticket, right?
Exactly.
That was the ideology. I think there is a whole lot of introspection going to go on right now, both in Senegal and in those kind of movements around the continent, that if they didn't work, if this didn't work, then what will work?
What will work?
Maybe people be thinking maybe when Sonko comes in as a president, then things may work. Abdullah, you think so?
You see, there's nothing wrong with any one of these two people, but like I said, for me, it's just a foundational problem. Nobody ever heard from Jomai Faye what he had. Maybe there's a plus or minus from the generic. I would say generic because what they promised is the same thing everybody else has promised across the world, to fight corruption, improve the living condition of people, improve access to education, affordable health, and all that. So it wasn't anything really unique or spectacular that they sold to the people. But again, people are unable. I'm sorry to say this, though. I don't mean to be offensive, but they've been unable to draw the line between President Jomai Faye as a person and him as a president. Because Jomai Faye today isn't an individual; he's an institution. He's an institution. They need to be respected for that. I mean, because a couple of times it happened when officials, the cabinet officials went to events and they referred to the prime minister as president. It is almost unacceptable. In fact, unacceptable that you have a minister address the prime minister as a president when there is a sitting president. So there need to be some sort of reorientation, and believe me, this is going to happen. There is always a defining moment for every nation. Even us as individuals, there is a time that comes to us, a moment of awakening.
But could it also be that when you say that two people are the same, as was the case during the campaign, then psychologically it just kind of works in your head that they are the same, so you don't even know where to draw the line.
Maybe that is what is affecting the population in this regard.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think they were sold to the population as the same person. As they used to say in Wolof, right?
Yes.
Jomai, Sonko. So it's a difficult thing to actually distinguish as the time goes on that the president
maybe that will be
the prime minister
divided now. That Jomai is Jomai and Sonko is Sonko.
Exactly, it's a difficult thing to come back from.
But at the end of the day, going forward, I think there are lessons to be learned. And this is why democracies in Africa have failed and continue to fail.
But do you think our leaders learn any lesson, take these lessons? I mean, when we say what are the lessons, of course there are lessons. We saw what transpired during towards the end of Macky Sall, and what prompted all of this, understood to be in government. Were lessons there learned? Were they taken in for correction?
So, if anything, we should also call Macky Sall back to this equation, because there was a time when the government structure of Senegal had the office of the prime minister, and then there was a time that it was scrapped.
Yes.
And just before the election time, he reintroduced that office as a way of selling maybe his successor or a possible candidate to the government, which then was Amadou
or keeping his party in government. Keeping his party.
But it failed. Now, this, I think, created a vacuum now for what we have. But if anything, going back to what I said about lessons being learned, the electorate are the ones with the power. They keep forgetting that. As a voter, as a citizen, your power does not just end at the ballot. It continues. They have the power to recall a mayor who is performing woefully. They have the power to recall a representative that is underserving them or not representing their interest. Yeah. But they always assume that it's only during elections that they can make these critical decisions. And I think that is something we should be watchful for.
Well, Francis, since the past 2 years, there has been several complaints from the population in terms of how difficult, the cost of living has become in Senegal. Rents have doubled. In most cases, we are seeing taxes virtually on everything, even to a drop of water, which if you lick a drop of water, you pay tax on it. Do you think at this point the suffering in the minds of the people will influence their decision in the coming days?
Yeah, definitely it will have an effect. The good thing for the two parties are, like, for example, for President Jomai Faye, like I said, the decision doesn't have to be made now. I think Abdullahi cited it very well. He has about 1 year to turn this around, right? For former Prime Minister Sonko, he has the next 3 years to strategize on how to. So I think the two sides have their good advantage from what is going on now, just that the people are at a disadvantage. But going back to the issue of whether this will affect their decision making, if the election were to happen this week, obviously it would. You know?
Okay.
It would have a direct impact.
Definitely.
But because there is enough time to turn this around, if good policies are put in place, if the president is able to get parliament to support his own plans and his own bills and all that to turn this around, I think there is a window of opportunity. But trust me, if the election were to happen this week or this month, it would have a big impact.
Indeed. Well, Abdullah, would you say it was wise for Jomai to have retained the Jomai coalition, which they use in bringing him to presidency? Because now we've seen the split.
So I think he knew this was going to happen.
Okay.
And he kind of needed that fallback plan, say plan B, C, D. And if anything, I project that this coalition is going to grow stronger because I foresee a split happen in PASTEV. It may not be today, but there's going to be a split. Now, of course, you can go back to some of the old parties, the PDS of former president. They may want to reconcile. They may want to reconcile. At the end of the day, it's about at what cost? And is it about the interest of the people or about the office holders? But it's kind of complicated. Only time will tell. Only time will tell.
Francis, are we going to see a stronger collaboration in terms of, Abdullah talked about maybe the other opposition parties forming a coalition with Jomai's to stay in power? Because at this point, we also know that PASTEV will want to restructure on June 6th and, make itself a formidable opposition.
1 hour is a very long time in politics. How much more when you have more than that? So I think the landscape is going to radically change over the next few weeks, months, and getting into years. The landscape will really shift. I think, like I said, and I think I agree with the fact that there will be coalitions, because that's one principal way of getting support you wouldn't naturally get if you remained and just, said, okay, this is my party, I don't want, but you need that broad coalition to bring in those votes. So I think on both ends, they will probably, I foresee PASTEV entering into coalition with other parties also. I foresee the same thing on the President Jomai Faye end. So I think we may end up in a situation where by 2029, all things being equal, we'll see two broad coalitions against each other. And it would no longer be an Usman Sonko versus President Jomai Faye contest. It's going to be like between two broad coalitions that they've been able to garner over the years. That's what I think may end up happening in 3 years' time.
But do you think it was a wise decision, Abdullah, because, before now, people were saying that, yes, Jomai shouldn't have made Sonko a prime minister. Sonko would have been at the background as a godfather, or perhaps as an advisor in this regard, and allow Jomai to run the government.
I love your second option. Advisor. You know why? Because godfatherism also is why African democracy or democracies in Africa are where they are today. People believe, okay, if I am a major contributor to why you came
That's
to
why
power,
I said advisor.
Yes, advisor.
Yes.
That's one. Two, let me speak clearly on this part of politics I understand better. Like for the Anglophone political system.
Yes.
Once you are a party leader, you have no business being in government. You have no business whatsoever being in government. But here it happens that when you present a candidate list as a leader, you happen to be on the top of the list. And so whatever happens, be it at the parliamentary level, when you win, it's almost automatic that you have a seat, or that you can be appointed as a prime minister, and luckily you climb up the ladder to becoming a president. So I think going forward, these are some of the issues that may emerge as a point of discussion, that there should be a serious restructuring, first off, with the political party system and governance. They need to be aligned.
Well, let's drive home this show. We have just 1 minute to say goodbye to our listeners and viewers. Francis, we talked about lessons the other time. Do you think Jomai will learn a lesson from this, maybe in setting up the next government?
A lot of lessons to be learned. I think we sometimes tend to forget what the situation was years ago, just before election, before Jomai Faye accomplished in his own career, in his own right, as an individual, but he was nothing of a political force. Then all of a sudden, everything happened so fast, became president, had to learn on the job, did so many things along the way. So I think he's someone definitely that knows how to learn lessons and implement those. The same as former Prime Minister Sonko, his stock has also risen so much, from being an activist to now an accomplished politician in his own right. So I think lessons have been learned across board. We now wait to see what the effects of those lessons will be. Will they lead to better policies? Will they lead to policies that will affect the lives of the people? And just like we said, there may be issues in Parliament, at least from now till December. I think Abdullahi said something about them making decisions, having the interest of the people in mind, not necessarily the interest of individuals. Yeah. Will the parliaments be able to think about the people and not to which camp they belong? Because at the end of the day, you still have a country to run.
Exactly.
Until December. At the end of the day, you still have mouths to feed. At the end of the day, the economy is not doing well. So these lessons learned have to be applied to make life better for the people, at least between now and December.
Abdullah, as we say goodbye, I mean, it's going to be an interesting period for the media houses in Senegal. The headlines will be flying all over.
And across the world.
Yes.
Across the world, because Senegal has a very good history. It has a very good history of sustained democracy. And for many countries, and even when we attend forums, even international forums, Senegal is one case study. They usually would mention Senegal as being an example.
Yes, a beacon of democracy.
If anything, if I recall well, Jomai Faye is like the youngest democratically elected president.
Yes, he is.
So there is a lot for Senegal as a country and Jomai Faye as a person. And even Ousmane Sonko, supposing he's in a position now to do whatever they have to do, but they do it with all sense of objectivity and responsibility. And let me also remind our listeners,
yes.
I have like a
30
minute.
seconds of the line.
What happened in Senegal is not new. For them, it's more about disappointment that it happened. Let's go back to Nigeria. Obasanjo, former President Obasanjo and Atiku. It happened. Atiku, since then, almost 16 years, he wanted to be president. It never happened. Uhuru Kenyatta and now President William Ruto, they had the same. Let's talk of the boss of all bosses, President Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who invested over $100 million in his campaign. We saw that happen. So it's nothing new, but it's about how it's about what happens after that separation and how the country understands and navigates the storm.
Well, interesting times we are in at this point, and we will bring you all of the updates, follow-ups on here on West Africa Democracy Radio. Thank you so much all for joining us on this edition of Citizens Hour, coming to you live on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar. I want to thank Abdullah Hassan, the head of news here, and Francis Boniface, the head of digital media, for joining me to discuss this important and as we say, August event here in Senegal. And a big thanks to all of you following us on YouTube and on Facebook. Thank you so much for your time. Let's have this again next week. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Naudo Juve. Thank you so much, guys. and well done. Well, do join up the line the next couple of minutes for
the second edition of News Track.
Yes, and it is loaded. I am Imoided. Good morning.
I have witnessed so many elections, and I will tell you for a fact that INEC cannot deliver free and fair election.
We need to even unpack what political commitment is.